Welcome to the Deep Dive AI. It seems like it's on everyone's mind these days, and for good reason.
Yeah, definitely seems like it's everywhere.
So today we're diving into a book that really gets into the nitty-gritty of AI, artificial intelligence, and the future of power. 5 Battlegrounds by Rajiv Malhotra.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of this one.
Have you read it?
I have, yeah, I've read this one.
It's pretty intense, right?
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
It is. And, it's fascinating because Malhotra himself actually has a background in AI, like developing early AI algorithms. So he's not just some outsider looking in.
Right, he's got that firsthand experience.
Exactly. And you can really tell in the book that as he saw this field just exploding, he started asking some really deep questions about what it means to be human in a world that's, increasingly run by AI.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to unpack in this deep dive, especially for our bookworms on Book Reviews 1. What worries him about AI? What does he think we can do about it? And what does it all mean for us?
That's a great question. And I think one of the things that struck me was how he talks about AI evolving from something that could just play chess to becoming this incredibly powerful force in almost every industry.
It's like science fiction becoming reality right in front of us.
Right. And it's happening so fast.
It is. And he calls it a force multiplier.
Yeah.
He talks about how AI is being used now in quantum computing and robotics, and it's just changing the game everywhere.
Yeah.
But then he goes on to highlight how AI is also being used for what he calls psychological control, which is where things start to get a little bit unsettling.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's the part that makes you think.
It does, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Sure.
What exactly does he mean by psychological control?
Well, think about it this way. You're scrolling through your social media feed, right? And you see an ad for something you were literally just thinking about.
Happens to me all the time.
Right. That's AI working in the background. It's analyzing your data, creating a psychological model of you, and then using it to influence your behavior.
It's kind of creepy when you put it like that.
Right. It is kind of creepy.
And he uses the example of Amazon's recommendations, which I have to admit are often spot on. But it does make you wonder how much of our decision-making is actually our own.
That's the question, isn't it? And it's not just limited to product recommendations.
Right.
Malhotra also talks about these chatbots that are getting so sophisticated that they can almost pass for human.
Right. I've seen some of those things.
Yeah.
It's crazy how real they seem.
It is. And then there are deepfakes, which can basically mimic someone's voice and appearance with incredible accuracy.
It's like that episode Black Mirror where they create digital copies of people.
Exactly. It's unsettling stuff. And all of this ties into his idea of the mornization of the masses, which is a pretty strong term, but it basically means that we're becoming so dependent on AI for instant gratification and convenience that we're losing our ability to think critically and act independently.
We're trading our autonomy for, a little bit of entertainment.
Right. And in that process, we're becoming more predictable, easier to manipulate. And all of this leads to one of his biggest concerns, the impact of AI on jobs.
Right. And I think this is something that's on a lot of people's minds these days. Everyone's talking about AI and jobs.
Yeah, it's a hot topic for sure.
But Malhotra argues that this time it's different. This isn't just, robots replacing factory workers. He's talking about AI automating increasingly complex cognitive work.
He specifically mentions things like truck drivers, customer service representatives, even white-collar jobs in fields like finance and law.
Yeah, he really goes there.
He does. And his point is that the speed at which AI is developing and its ability to take on these more complex roles is going to have a huge impact on the workforce.
It does make you wonder, what skills will we need to stay relevant in a future that's driven by AI?
It's a question we all need to be asking ourselves.
So for our viewers out there, what do you think? Is this time really different? Or is this just, another wave of technological advancement that will ultimately create more jobs? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, because we'd love to hear from you.
Always good to get a discussion going.
Exactly. So while we're grappling with this on an individual level, Malhotra actually takes it a step further, and he examines how AI is impacting entire nations. And he uses India as a case study.
Right. India is a really interesting example.
It is. And he draws some really fascinating parallels between India's current technological dependence on foreign companies and its colonial past.
He's concerned that India is becoming too reliant on foreign AI solutions and that this could lead to what he calls digital colonization.
That's a pretty heavy term, digital colonization. Can you unpack that a little bit for us? What does he mean by that?
So imagine a scenario where foreign AI companies have significant control over a country's economy, its society influencing controlling everything from its financial systems to its cultural narratives.
So it's not just about data, it's about power.
Exactly. It's about power. It's about who controls the technology, who controls the data, and who ultimately benefits from its development.
And that brings us to the global stage where we see this rivalry emerging between the US and China for AI dominance.
It's like a new kind of arms race.
It is. And Malhotra paints a pretty concerning picture of China's approach. They're being very strategic, very systematic, investing heavily in AI research and development. And he argues that India is lagging behind.
He sees this as a major threat to India's future.
He does.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on this global AI race? Is it something we should be worried about?
It's definitely something to keep an eye on. And in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to explore how this power struggle is playing out and what it means for the future of countries like India.
All right, so stay tuned because things are about to get really interesting. And don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to Book Reviews 1, and share this episode with your friends. We'll be back with part 2 soon. Welcome back to the deep dive. So in the last part, we got pretty deep into some of the concerns that Malhotra raises about AI, but he doesn't just leave us hanging with these, doom and gloom scenarios.
No, he doesn't.
He offers some solutions, some practical steps we can take, and that's what we're going to dive into now.
Right. And this is where his deep dive into Indian philosophy and spirituality gets really interesting, I think.
Yeah, he keeps coming back to this idea of being over algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
Can you unpack that a bit for us? What does he mean by that?
Sure. So think about it like this. Imagine you're scrolling through your social media feed, right? How much of what you see is curated by an algorithm that's designed to keep you engaged and keep you scrolling?
It's probably most of it, if we're being honest.
Right, exactly. And so Malhotra's point is that our true power lies in recognizing those influences and consciously choosing how we interact with this technology.
So it's about remembering that we're more than just data points to be analyzed and manipulated.
Right. We're not just mindless consumers. We have agency. We have the ability to choose.
So he's really drawing a distinction between human consciousness and artificial intelligence.
Exactly. He believes that while AI can mimic some aspects of human intelligence, it can never truly replicate our consciousness. Our sense of self, our capacity for love, compassion, moral reasoning. These are things that go beyond, the material world and the logic of machines.
It's like he's saying there's something about being human that can't be coded or programmed.
Right. It's like the soul almost, something that transcends the physical world.
That's really interesting. So how do we actually reclaim that being in a world that's constantly trying to optimize us and algorithmize us?
Well, Malhotra proposes a multi-pronged approach. First, he stresses the importance of education, raising awareness about the potential pitfalls of AI, empowering individuals to use it consciously and ethically.
So it's like knowing the rules of the game so you're not just being played.
Exactly. And then he takes it a step further by advocating for a revival of traditional values and wisdom. He believes that these ancient traditions, particularly those rooted in Indian philosophy, can offer a framework for navigating the ethical complexities of the AI age.
He specifically talks about dharma, kshatriyata, and yajna, right? These are Sanskrit terms, so maybe we can break those down for our listeners.
Sure. So dharma can be thought of as living in accordance with, cosmic order and truth, recognizing our interconnectedness with everything around us and acting in a way that promotes harmony and well-being.
So in the context of AI, how would we apply that?
Well, it could mean advocating for the ethical development and use of AI, making sure that it benefits all of humanity, not just a select few.
So asking questions like, is this technology being developed and used in a way that aligns with our values? Is it promoting fairness and justice?
Exactly. And then there's kshatriyata, which is often translated as warrior spirit.
Warrior spirit. Okay.
But it's not about, aggression or violence. It's more about courage, standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult.
So in the AI age, what would that look like?
It could mean speaking out against the misuse of AI, challenging those who would use it for unethical purposes, holding those in power accountable.
So it's about having the courage to be kind of a digital warrior, right?
Yeah.
Fighting for a future where AI is used responsibly and ethically.
Exactly. And then there's yajna, which is often translated as sacrifice. But again, it's not about self-denial or depredation. It's more about contributing to something larger than yourself, giving back to the community, recognizing that we're all in this together.
So how does that apply to the AI conversation?
Well, it could mean working to ensure that the benefits of AI are shared equitably, that it's used to uplift and empower everyone, not just a privileged few.
So it's really about shifting the focus from, individual gain to collective well-being.
Right, using AI to address global challenges like poverty, inequality, climate change.
This is really starting to shift the conversation from fear and anxiety to like a sense of hope and possibility.
I think so too. And Malhotra sees India with its rich spiritual and philosophical heritage as having a really unique role to play in this global conversation about the ethical use of AI.
He believes that India can be a Vishwaguru, right?
Yes. A world leader in thought and wisdom, guiding the world towards a more humane and sustainable future.
So it's not about rejecting technology altogether.
Yeah.
It's about integrating it with our values and wisdom, shaping it in a way that benefits all of humanity.
Exactly.
I like that. So we've talked about the individual level. We've talked about the national level. Now in the final part of our deep dive, we're going to zoom out even further and look at the geopolitical landscape of AI, the rivalry between the U.S. and China, and what it all means for India and the world.
This is where it gets really interesting.
It does. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with part 3. All right, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive, and we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about AI's potential for manipulation, its impact on jobs, and even this idea of digital colonization. But now I want to zoom out and look at the global picture, the big picture. How is AI shaping the future of power on a global scale?
And that's really where Malhotra takes us in the final part of the book. He kind of connects all the dots and shows how AI is not just a technological issue, it's a geopolitical issue as well.
Right. It's not just about, who has the best algorithms. It's about who controls the data, who controls the infrastructure, and ultimately who benefits from all of this.
Exactly. And he paints a pretty stark picture of this emerging rivalry between the U.S. and China for AI dominance.
Yeah, it's like a new kind of Cold War, right? But instead of nuclear weapons, it's algorithms and data.
Right. And he sees this rivalry as having huge implications for the rest of the world, especially for countries like India.
He keeps coming back to this idea of digital colonization, which is a pretty strong term. Can you break that down for us a little bit? What exactly does he mean by that?
Imagine a scenario where foreign AI companies have so much control over a country's data that they can basically dictate its economic policies, its social policies, even its cultural narratives.
So it's like a new form of imperialism.
In a way, yes. And he draws some pretty interesting parallels between, the East India Company and these modern tech giants.
Yeah, that's a pretty powerful analogy.
It is. And he argues that if countries like India don't develop their own strategic approach to AI, they risk becoming, digital colonies subservient to the interests of these more powerful nations.
So what does a strategic approach to AI look like?
Well, for Malhotra, it's not just about, investing in research and development. It's also about developing a strong ethical framework for AI.
Right, because if you don't have those ethical guidelines in place, it's easy to get swept up in, the race for technological dominance and lose sight of the bigger picture.
Exactly. And he believes that India, with its rich spiritual and philosophical heritage, actually has a lot to offer in terms of developing that ethical framework.
So it's not about rejecting technology altogether. It's about integrating it with, our values, our wisdom.
Right. It's about using AI in a way that benefits all of humanity, not just a select few.
So what's the takeaway here for our viewers?
I think the biggest takeaway is that AI is not just some neutral force that's out there. It's a tool that can be used for good or for bad.
It's a double-edged sword.
Exactly. And it's up to us to decide how we want to use it and to make sure that it's used in a way that aligns with our values, our vision for the future.
That's a great point. And it brings us back to Malhotra's call to action. He's really urging us to wake up to the potential dangers of AI, but also to recognize the opportunities it presents.
He's not just a pessimist, he's also an optimist. He believes that we can shape the future of AI if we're willing to put in the effort.
And that's what this deep dive has been all about.
Yeah.
About starting a conversation, raising awareness, and empowering people to make informed choices about the role of AI in their lives.
Exactly. So for our viewers out there, what are your thoughts on all of this? What questions do you have? What concerns do you have? Let us know in the comments below because we really want to hear from you.
And while you're down there, hit that like button, subscribe to Book Reviews 1 for more deep dives like this, and share this episode with your friends. Because the more people we can get involved in this conversation, the better. So that's it for our deep dive into artificial intelligence and the future of power by Rajiv Malhotra. It's been a fascinating journey, and I want to thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, keep reading, keep thinking, and keep questioning the world around you.